In Lagos, poverty has a smell. It smells like open gutters, burning refuse, and sweaty bodies pressed together in a Danfo bus. I lived with that smell for 22 years. My name is Chidinma, and I was tired of smelling like poverty. I came to Lagos with nothing but a secondary school certificate and a desperate prayer. I wanted to work. I wanted to save money to send to my mother in the village. But Lagos is a hard place. For 6 months, I hawked pure water in traffic under the burning sun. My skin, which used to be smooth and dark, was becoming rough and dry. I was losing hope. Then I met Mr. Hugo. He was an agent who had an office in a small container in Yaba. He told me he connected good girls with high-class madams on the island. He looked at me, scanning my face like he was buying a goat in the market. "You are beautiful, Chidinma," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead with a dirty handkerchief. "You have that natural village glow, fresh blood. The big madams like that." I didn't care about his creepy words. I just wanted a job. "How much is the salary, sir?" I asked. He smiled, revealing teeth stained by cola nut. "The job is in Banana Island. The salary is 500,000 naira a month." I almost fell off my chair. 500,000? That was more than a bank manager earned. "Sir," I whispered, "what kind of work is it? I will not do, bad things." He laughed. No, my daughter. You are just a house help. You will cook, clean, and keep the madam company. She is lonely. She wants a young girl around the house. But there are rules. Strict rules. I didn't care about rules. For 500,000 naira, I would scrub the roof with a toothbrush. I signed the papers immediately. The next day, a black-tinted SUV came to pick me up. The driver did not speak to me. The air conditioner in the car was so cold I was shivering. We drove past the chaos of the mainland, over the third mainland bridge, and into the quiet, wealthy streets of Ikoyi. When we arrived at the gate of Banana Island, the security guards saluted the car. We drove deep into the estate, past houses that looked like palaces. Finally, we stopped in front of a massive white mansion. It had high walls topped with electric fencing. The gate was gold and black, intricate and intimidating. The driver opened the door. "Get out," he grunted. "She is waiting." I stepped out. The compound was paved with sparkling interlocking stones. There were expensive cars parked in the garage, a Rolls-Royce, a Guajan, and a Bentley. Everything smelled of money. The front door opened. A woman stood there. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. She looked like she was carved out of dark chocolate. Her skin was flawless, no pimples, no spots, just glowing, radiant skin that looked like it had been polished with oil. She wore a flowing silk boo-boo gown that shimmered in the sunlight. Her hair was wrapped in a tall, elegant turban. She looked young, maybe 30 years old, but her eyes were different. They were deep and dark like 2 tunnels with no end. When she looked at me, I felt cold, despite the heat. "Welcome, Chidinma," she said. Her voice was like honey, smooth and sweet, but there was a metallic edge to it. "I am Madam Florence." "Good afternoon, Ma." I knelt down on the hard stone. "Thank you for having me." "Stand up," she commanded gently. "In this house we do not kneel. We stand tall. Beauty should not be on the ground." She led me inside. The interior of the house was breathless. The floor was white marble that reflected my face like a mirror. A giant gold chandelier hung from the ceiling. There were paintings on the wall that looked older than my village. "You will like it here," Madam Florence said, walking ahead of me. She didn't walk. She glided. I live alone. My husband is no longer with us, and my children are abroad. I need life in this house. I need youth. She took me to the kitchen. It was huge, with stainless steel appliances. There was a cook there, an older man named Baba John. He was cutting vegetables. When he saw me, he stopped. He looked at me with sad, fearful eyes. He opened his mouth to speak, but then he looked at Madam Florence, and quickly looked down, chopping the carrots aggressively. Baba John doesn't talk much, Madam Florence said, dismissing him with a wave of her manicured hand. He knows his place. She led me up the winding staircase to the second floor. Your room is here, she said, opening a door. I gasped. The maid's room was bigger than my entire family house. It had a king-sized bed, a flat-screen TV, and its own bathroom. It was freezing cold, cooled by a silent split unit AC. This is for me? I asked, touching the soft duvet. Only the best for my girls, she smiled. But then her face became serious. The smile vanished instantly, like a light switch being turned off. Now, Chidinma, listen carefully. I pay well because I expect obedience. There are 3 rules in this house. If you break them, you leave immediately without pay. Do you understand? Yes, Ma, I said, frightened by the sudden change in her tone. Rule number 1, she said, raising a long, slender finger. You must never enter the pink room at the end of the hallway. That is my private sanctuary. It is always locked. Do not knock. Do not try the handle. Yes, Ma. Rule number 2, she continued, stepping closer to me. I could smell her perfume. It smelled like expensive flowers, but underneath there was a faint smell of something earthy, like wet soil. You must drink the special tea Baba John prepares for you every night before bed. It is for your health. I want my girls to be healthy and glowing. Yes, Ma. And rule number 3, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. She grabbed my chin, tilting my face up to look into her dark eyes. This is the most important rule. Never, ever look into a mirror after midnight. I blinked. A mirror, Ma? After 12 a.m., she hissed. Cover the mirrors in your room. Do not look at your reflection in the glass. Do not look at the bathroom mirror. The night is for sleeping, not for vanity. If you look in the mirror after midnight, you might see things that are not meant for your eyes. She let go of my chin. The smile returned. Now go and shower. Baba John will bring your dinner and your tea. She turned and glided out of the room, closing the door softly behind her. I stood there, surrounded by luxury, but feeling a knot of fear in my stomach. The rules were strange, but 500,000 naira was real money. I told myself that rich people are just eccentric. They have weird habits. I showered in the expensive bathroom. The water was hot and smelled of lavender. I put on the fresh pajamas that were left on the bed. They were silk, pink, and soft. Around 8 p.m., there was a knock on the door. It was Baba John. He was holding a tray with a plate of jollof rice and chicken and a large mug of steaming herbal tea. He set the tray down on the table. He looked at the door to make sure it was closed. Then he looked at me. He tapped his ear and shook his head. He was pretending to be deaf and dumb, but I knew he could hear. He pointed to the tea. He made a face of disgust. He shook his head vigorously, signaling me not to drink it. Then he heard footsteps in the hallway. He quickly straightened up, bowed, and hurried out of the room. I looked at the food. I was hungry. I ate the rice. It was delicious. Then I looked at the tea. It was dark red, almost purple. It smelled like hibiscus, but also like iron. Rule number 2, Madam had said. Drink the tea. If I didn't drink it and she found out, I would lose the job. Baba John was just a scared old man. What could be wrong with tea? Maybe it was just vitamins. I lifted the cup to my lips. I took a sip. It tasted sweet, sickly sweet. I drank it all. Within 10 minutes, my eyelids felt like lead. My body felt heavy, sinking into the soft mattress. I turned off the lights. I remembered the rule about the mirror. I threw a towel over the vanity mirror in the bedroom. I fell into a deep, drug-induced sleep. But it wasn't a peaceful sleep. I started to dream. In my dream, I was lying on the bed, paralyzed. I couldn't move my arms or legs. The room was dark, but the door handle was turning. Click. The door opened slowly. A figure walked in. It was Madam Florence, but she wasn't wearing her silk gown. She was naked, but her skin wasn't smooth anymore. It was moving, writhing. She floated towards my bed. She hovered over me. She opened her mouth, and a long, translucent tube, like a proboscis of a mosquito, extended from her throat. She lowered her face to mine. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. She placed the tube against my cheek. I felt a sharp pinch, and then I felt a pulling sensation. I felt my energy, my warmth, my youth being sucked out of my body, flowing up the tube and into her. As she drank from me, her skin began to glow. The wrinkles I saw in the dark smoothed out. She was feeding. I woke up with a gasp. I sat up in bed, sweating, my heart pounding. It was pitch black in the room. The AC was humming. It was just a dream, I whispered to myself. Just a nightmare. I felt thirsty. My throat was parched. I needed water. I checked the time on the digital clock by the bed. 2:15 a.m. I got out of bed. My legs felt weak, wobbling like a newborn calf. I stumbled to the bathroom. I turned on the tap and splashed cold water on my face. It felt good. I reached for a towel to dry my face, and then, without thinking, I looked up. I looked straight into the bathroom mirror. I had forgotten the rule. It was after midnight. I looked into the bathroom mirror, and I didn't scream. I couldn't scream. The air was trapped in my throat. The face looking back at me was mine, but it wasn't me. My dark skin, which was usually fresh, oily, and tight, was gray and ashy. It looked dry, like the harmattan season had sucked all the moisture out of it. My eyes were sunken deep into my skull, surrounded by dark, heavy bags that looked like bruises. I leaned closer to the glass, my hands trembling. I pulled down my lower eyelid. It was pale, anemic. I touched my hair. A clump of black hair fell out into the sink. I looked like I had aged 10 years in 4 hours. "The tea," I whispered, my voice sounding raspy and weak. It wasn't vitamins. It was poison. The dream wasn't a dream. Madam Florence had been in my room. She had done something to me. She had stolen something from me. I splashed more water on my face, scrubbing hard, praying it was just a hallucination. But the old woman in the mirror stared back at me with terrified eyes. I couldn't stay in this room. I had to leave. I had to find Baba John. He tried to warn me. He would know what to do. I opened the bedroom door slowly. The expensive hinges were silent. The hallway of the mansion was dark, lit only by the moonlight streaming through the high windows. The marble floor was cold against my bare feet. I crept towards the staircase, but as I passed the long corridor, I heard a sound. It was coming from the end of the hall. From the pink room. Rule number 1, she had said. Never enter the pink room. But the sound was pulling me. It was a low, guttural chanting. And underneath the chanting was a wet, squelching sound. Slap, squelch, slap, like wet meat being thrown against a wall. I knew I should run downstairs. I knew I should climb the gate and run back to the mainland. But curiosity is a curse. I needed to know what was in that room. I walked towards the door. It was painted a soft, innocent pink with gold trimmings. I reached out my hand. The handle was cold. I turned it. It wasn't locked. I pushed the door open just a crack. A sliver of red light spilled out into the dark hallway. The smell hit me instantly. It didn't smell like perfume anymore. It smelled like a butcher's shop. Fresh blood and sulfur. I peeked inside. The room wasn't a bedroom. It was a shrine. The walls were covered in mirrors, hundreds of them. Antique mirrors with gold frames, cracked mirrors, small hand mirrors. And in the center of the room, surrounded by tall red candles, stood Madame Florence. She was standing in front of a massive full-length mirror. She was naked, but she didn't look like the beautiful woman I met in the afternoon. From the back, her skin looked loose. It was hanging off her body like an oversized coat. It was rippling and moving, as if something was alive underneath it. She was holding a jar, a glass jar filled with a glowing golden liquid. My essence. I watched in horror as she opened the jar and poured the liquid over her head. As the golden light touched her skin, the loose flesh tightened. The gray spots vanished. Her body snapped and cracked as it reshaped itself into the youthful, curvy figure of Madam Florence. She was bathing in my youth. Then she spoke. She wasn't speaking to herself. She was speaking to the reflection in the mirror. "Is it enough, Mama?" she asked, her voice trembling with fear. I looked at the reflection in the mirror. The reflection didn't match her body. In the mirror, Madam Florence wasn't a young woman. She wasn't even human. The reflection showed a withered, ancient creature with no eyes, just empty black sockets. Its skin was wrought black, peeling away to reveal white bone. It smiled, revealing rows of sharp, filed teeth. The reflection spoke back. Its voice didn't come from Madam's mouth. It came from the glass itself. "It is weak," the reflection hissed. "The girl is strong, but you spilled too much. You need more. Go back to her. Finish the bottle." Madam Florence bowed to the monster in the mirror. "Yes, Mama, I will go now." She turned around. I gasped and pulled the door shut, but my hand slipped on the knob. Click. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silent house. The chanting inside the room stopped. The wet, squelching sound stopped. "Who is there?" Madam Florence's voice called out. It wasn't sweet anymore. It was a predator's growl. I didn't wait. I turned and ran. My legs were weak from the draining, but fear gave me adrenaline. I sprinted down the hallway, my silk pajamas flying behind me. I heard the door of the pink room bang open. I heard heavy, wet footsteps chasing me. Thump, thump, thump. I reached the stairs. I stumbled, nearly falling, but I grabbed the banister. I practically slid down the marble steps to the ground floor. "Baba John," I screamed, "help me." The house was dark. The kitchen was empty. I ran to the front door. I grabbed the handle and pulled. Locked. I looked for the key. It wasn't in the hole. "You cannot leave, Chidinma." Madam Florence's voice floated down from the top of the stairs. I looked up. She was standing at the top of the landing. She was wearing her silk robe again, looking perfect and beautiful. But her eyes were glowing red in the darkness, and in her hand she held a long, sharp carving knife. "You broke the rules," she sighed, descending the stairs slowly. "You looked in the mirror, you entered the room. Now I cannot just sip from you. I have to break the cup." I backed away towards the dining room. I needed a weapon. I needed a way out. Then I saw it. The glass sliding doors leading to the pool area. I grabbed a heavy bronze statue from the side table. It was a sculpture of an African head. I threw it with all my might at the glass door. Crash! The glass shattered. The alarm system started blaring. "We-oh-oh, we-oh-oh. You stupid girl." Madam screamed, her face contorting into the withered mask of the monster I saw in the mirror. She lunged at me. I jumped through the broken glass, cutting my feet, and landed on the cold concrete of the pool deck. I was outside, but I was still trapped in the compound. The electric fence hummed above me. The gate was locked, and coming from the side of the house, I saw Baba John. He was walking towards me. He was holding a shovel. "Baba," I cried, "please open the gate." Baba John looked at me. Then he looked at Madam Florence, who was stepping through the broken glass, the knife glinting in the moonlight. He raised the shovel. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the heavy metal shovel to crush my skull. Clang! The sound of metal hitting bone rang out in the night air, but I didn't feel any pain. I opened my eyes. Baba John hadn't hit me. He had swung the shovel with old man strength, smashing it straight into Madam Florence's shoulder. She screamed, stumbling back. The knife flew from her hand and skidded across the pool deck, but she didn't fall, and she didn't bleed red blood. Thick black tar oozed from the cut in her silk robe, smelling of sulfur and rotten eggs. "Run, child!" Baba John shouted, his voice cracking. "Go to the generator house behind the garage. Kill the power. The gate will open." Madam Florence roared. It wasn't a human sound. Her jaw unhinged, revealing a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth. She looked at Baba John with pure hatred. "You useless old dog," she hissed. "I gave you life, I let you stay." She lunged at him. Her fingernails elongated into claws. She swiped at his chest, tearing through his chef's uniform like it was paper. Baba John fell to the ground, gasping. "Run," he choked out, blood bubbling from his mouth. I didn't waste his sacrifice. I scrambled up from the wet concrete, my bare feet bleeding from the glass shards. I sprinted towards the garage. Behind me, I heard a wet snapping sound, then silence. I knew Baba John was gone. I reached the small generator house. The door was unlocked. Inside, the massive diesel generator was humming loudly. On the wall was a complex panel of switches and lights. I didn't know which one was for the gate. I didn't know which one was for the fence. So I grabbed a heavy metal wrench lying on the floor. "Die!" I screamed. I smashed at the panel. Sparks flew everywhere. Blue and yellow electricity arced through the room. The generator sputtered, coughed, and died. The lights in the mansion went out. The hum of the electric fence stopped. The compound was plunged into total darkness. I ran back out. The heavy black gate was slightly open. The electronic lock had disengaged. But standing between me and the gate was Madam Florence. She was fully transformed now. Her skin had peeled back completely, revealing the raw, red muscle and bone underneath. She looked like a skinned corpse walking. Her eyes were burning like coals. "You cannot leave with my youth," she screeched. "Give it back." She ran at me on all fours, like a spider. I looked around. I was near the garage. Next to the Rolls-Royce was a red jerry can of fuel for the generator. I grabbed the can. I unscrewed the cap. As she leaped at me, I swung the can, splashing diesel all over her raw, exposed flesh. She shrieked as the fuel hit her open wounds. She stumbled, blinding herself. I reached into my pocket. I still had the lighter I used for the mosquito coil in my room. I flicked it. The flame danced in the dark. "Rule number 4, I whispered. "Don't play with fire." I threw the lighter at her. Whoosh! She ignited instantly. The diesel caught fire, and she turned into a human torch. She screamed, thrashing around, flailing her burning arms. She ran blindly towards the pool, trying to extinguish the flames. I didn't wait to see if she survived. I squeezed through the gap in the heavy black gate. I ran out onto the quiet, paved streets of Banana Island. I ran until my lungs burned. I ran past the security patrol, screaming for help. They stopped their truck, shining their lights on me. "Help me," I cried. "She tried to kill me." The security guards looked at me with confusion and disgust. "Madam?" one guard asked. "Are you okay? Where is your caretaker?" "I am not a madam," I yelled. "I am Chidinma. I am 22 years old." The guard frowned. He tilted the rearview mirror of the truck towards me. "Look at yourself, ma," he said softly. I looked in the mirror. The face staring back at me wasn't 22. My hair was white. My face was lined with deep wrinkles. My eyes were cloudy with cataracts. I looked like a 70-year-old woman. I collapsed on the road, weeping into my old, withered hands. It has been 5 years since that night. The police said the mansion burned down. They found the charred remains of an unidentified creature and the body of the cook. They never found Madam Florence. I live in the village now. My mother takes care of me. She tells the neighbors I am her grandmother because it is too hard to explain that I am her daughter. I am 27 years old, trapped in the body of an 80-year-old. I sit on the porch and listen to the radio. I don't own a television. I don't own a mirror. But yesterday, my little niece came to visit from Lagos. She was excited. She told me she met a nice woman in the market, a beautiful, rich woman who runs a boutique in Lekki. "She offered me a job, Grandma," my niece said, her eyes shining. "She said she needs a young girl to live in her house. She said the salary is very high." My blood ran cold. "Did she have rules?" I asked, gripping my walking stick. "Yes," my niece laughed. "She said she has a special tea for good health. And she said, 'Never look in the mirror after midnight.'" I looked at my niece. I looked at her fresh, youthful skin. And I knew. The madam didn't die in the fire. Fire doesn't kill what is already dead. She just moved house. She just found a new mirror. "Don't go," I whispered, but I knew she wouldn't listen. Poverty makes us deaf to warnings. So if you are a young girl in Lagos and a beautiful madam offers you a job that pays too much money, and she tells you not to look in the mirror, run. Run back to the gutter. Run back to the suffering, because poverty is better than being eaten alive.